Welcome back to the Rich Eisen Show. I've been fortunate enough to have met this man since I moved out to Los Angeles about 16 years ago, and in such great films that we all know about. A Few Good Men, Usual Suspects, Casino, Grumpy Old Men, Grumpier Old Men, and so much, and so on and so forth. And now he is in a dynamite television show called The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. He is part of the ensemble cast that won the SAG Award last year, just got nominated for another one this year. It's available for streaming on Amazon Prime Video. Good to see you, Kevin Pollak.
Yes, Rich, we must have met at a poker table
I
at
think
Hank's,
we did.
right?
Yes, at Hank Azaria's.
Yeah, that makes
absolutely happened.
Yeah.
And I said at the top of this hour, I don't know if you heard it.
I did.
It's true, so I'll say it.
I'd never heard it put that way.
We felt at each other. We have felt at each other.
Yeah, and
it's not fun when it happens.
If any of you watching or listening get subpoenaed because of this comment, I will stand witness.
It has in fact happened. Yeah. You don't like it, though. You particularly don't like it. No. I don't like it. Nobody likes it. Who likes it? Who likes it? Nobody likes it.
I've gone on to fell Daniel Negreanu at the feature table on camera during the World Series of Poker main event.
How did he take it?
He took it well because he's such a pro. He took it much better than you remember me taking it. Yeah.
How long did you last this year? How long did you?
So this year, I was short stacked. A small amount of chips, which could be the name of a book of mine, short stacked. But it's very difficult to never get a stack of chips that you have any sort of movement and momentum.
Yes.
So you start with 60,000 in chips. I was always between 85 and 45. I could not get anything going beyond that. And at a certain point by day 2, you have to start shoving all in, whether you want to or not. So
got to be aggressive.
You got to be selective with your moments. I ended up being 17-0 with my short stack shoves over 4 days until I became, of course, 17-1. But to go 17-0,
what a run!
Well, when I had my serious deep run in 2012, out of 6,800 players, I finished 134th.
Yeah,
where you can see the last 14 tables.
Yes,
that's bizarre. I probably shoved all in 6 times the entire tournament. This 17-0 thing was just because of the short stack issue. So to make it to day 4 and make the money late day 3 was great. It was really great. So, the number wasn't as impressive, 986, but the field this year was almost 9,000 players.
I mean, hey, no one's going to be walking around with foam fingers. I'm 986.
Someone did at a poker tournament make a hat for me that said 986. I swear to God. It's so funny you say that.
And it's just funny, hey, I'm 986.
Yeah.
But when there's 9,000 to start,
exactly.
You're in the final 10th. You made it in the final 10th.
Yeah.
That's
not a horrible thing, but just a cash, which means I've cashed 2 out of 6.
Right.
Batting 333. I think I'm first round.
Of course, you're first ballot material.
Yeah, first ballot.
No doubt. And right now you're wearing your San Francisco 49er lid and shirt.
So the 4-12 team from last year, you may remember.
Yes. Now they are flat out
tied for the best.
Fired up.
Yeah.
And
big
amazing.
weekend, by the way.
Right.
Not only finally not missing a field goal, which is the reason, if I may, we only have 2 losses.
Yes.
But to make that field goal in the final seconds and be able to drive back all the way in under a minute.
In New Orleans, too.
In New Orleans. It was an extraordinary game. Then, as my brother and I are texting each other, we've never rooted for the Rams, but for the Rams to then beat Seattle, allowing us to have this better advantage.
Yeah.
Looking down the playoffs.
By the end of the day. So did you grow up in
San Francisco and San Jose?
Did you go to Candlestick?
And I saw John Brody, that's how old I am, at a playoff game losing to Dallas, which was the first reason I hated that team.
Well, I mean, that all is what, why the catch was so big for many reasons. But the fact that it was finally against Dallas. I mean, you're giving the history of the animus.
Yeah. Well, because between John Brody and, if I may, the Messiah, Joe Montana.
Yes.
I suffered through not only DeBerg. I mean, Plunkett was our quarterback at one point. We had a very long, rough go of it. And then
the magic happened with Bill Walsh and the whole bit. And so you were in the stick, right? I mean, is it?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I can remember walking down the center of a very, very busy street.
Yeah.
In full traffic in San Francisco, high-fiving people going in both directions after our first Super Bowl victory. Yeah, those moments just stay with you forever.
Right.
Like You mentioned Bumgarner coming in fourth inning in Game 7 after very little rest and taking it through to the end.
Right.
All the way down to the last pitch. If you remember, there was a runner on third and anything was possible.
Yes, indeed, against the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, so if he plays, our friends in Kansas City, if he plays for the Dodgers, it'll be one of the signs of the apocalypse for sure. Without question, without hesitation.
You look for different horsemen and stuff like that.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's possible that might actually
Well, I understand
happen.
that capitalism has basically destroyed all professional sports, so why not my heart?
Kevin Pollak here on the Rich Eisen Show. All right, let's get into this, man. Let's get into all of this good stuff.
Sure.
From your career. When did A Few Good Men come across your desk?
So I was doing
radar
a 6-week summer series for CBS.
Yes.
That no one would ultimately watch because in the summer in 1991, it was all reruns. There was no original programming in the summer, so people just kind of went away.
Yeah.
But it was created by Rob Reiner and Christopher Guest, and it was a ridiculous opportunity for me. And so I'm having lunch every day with Rob, working on that. Mm-hmm. And one day he says, my next film was a very successful Broadway play. It's called A Few Good Men, and I've got Tom Cruise. I think I'm going to get Nicholson. There's a part of Tom's co-counsel that you're kind of perfect for. I have an offer out to Jason Alexander. If Seinfeld gets picked up for season 2, he won't be available. Castle Rock, Rob's company, also produced Seinfeld.
Right.
So he said if Seinfeld gets picked up, which was a big question mark because it was on Friday nights. They'd only aired 4 episodes. It was a big chances were this thing was going away.
Uh-huh.
And my prayers, along with Jason Alexander's prayers, amounted to his career doing very well and me getting A Few Good Men and getting a little busy in the 90s because of it.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how you got the gig.
That's ultimately how it happened, yeah.
All right. So now we've had Rob Reiner has been here before.
Yeah.
And I told you before, we've had him, Kevin Bacon, and Noah Wiley all tell from their perspective the final scene of Jack Nicholson, you want me on that wall, you need me on that wall, then you can't handle the truth, etc.
The Colonel Jessup soliloquy.
Yes.
Yep.
That you have an interesting
if I had a nickel for every time someone a fan of that movie, which there are a lot of, let's face it, it's on every 11 minutes.
It's a remote drop. Like no matter where you are in the film, it's like that. For me, it's that. The Fugitive is in that.
Goodfellas, I'm guessing.
Yes. Yeah. Where no matter where you are, it's like, 2 hours to go. I don't care. I'm just dropping the remote.
Yeah.
So yes, correct.
And Casino, I was fortunately involved in another movie that for some people that's a similar thing, or Suspects. Those 3, but A Few Good Men. I'd been impersonating Nicholson my whole stand-up act, how I started. Mm-hmm. So to just be around him was bizarre and surreal. And my character has no dialogue with him. We shake hands when we meet in his office in the beginning of the movie. So by the time we get to the courtroom and he singles me out, who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg? What? So clearly, Aaron Sorkin, the writer, who was a very young pup at that point in his career, he'd only done the Broadway play that he wrote, wanted everyone to know that Jessup was also anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
There's no other reason to point out you, Lieutenant Weinberg.
Right, exactly.
Who's going to do it? You, Tom Cruise? Are you going to do it, the Jew? Are you going to stand opposed? So if I had a nickel for every time someone on the street has pointed that out, and also as a question, they'll say, Kevin, I got to ask, I'm so sorry, maybe you get this a lot. When he says, who's going to do it? You, Lieutenant Weinberg, why is he picking you out? You've done nothing to upset the man. Other than walking across the desert for 40 years without a map. So when it came to Nicholson on the stand doing the soliloquy, I'm watching him. I don't know if Rob said, but Jack shot for 10 days. We'll speak out of turn, why not? He made $5 million for 10 days, $500,000 a day. And I asked him, when you make $500,000 a day, do you hit the snooze alarm?
Or you just
do you race into the shower
you just get in there
to start that $500,000 clock? So he only had 5 days in the courtroom.
That's it.
To shoot everything. And at the end of the 5 days, I'm sure Rob explained, they weren't quite done with Jack. But so Rob had to go to Jack and say, I can't afford to pay you to come back another day, but if you out of the goodness of your heart, come back for just a couple more shots. I'll get you out by noon. By 12 noon, I promise.
Right.
No matter where we are, you're whatever you need, Robbie, I'm here. So after watching him do this speech for so many days, and I've been saying it to my rearview mirror on the drive home, because it's so brilliantly written, my goodness. When that 12 noon time came, Jack was seated like this, looking at the judge where you are doing. Jack was doing at that point off-camera lines, where the camera was over Jack, onto the judge.
Right.
And so Rob said, cut, that's a wrap on Jack Nicholson. Everyone goes, bananas and lots of hugs and kisses. And I quietly went over to Rob and said, look, I've got this damn thing memorized. And if it's helpful at all to AJ, the actor who played the judge, I'm happy to sit on the stand and do the off-camera lines for him. Not for a goof, not to entertain the crew, and again, only if it's helpful to him to have someone do that.
Right.
I'll do it as Jack, is what I'm saying. And so the actor playing the judge loved the idea, and so we did it. And yes, after I finished the first one, the 150 or whatever crew member did break into ridiculous applause, which was not the intent, honestly.
You're being appreciated. You're being professional.
Yeah, it was appreciated. I'm not going to lie to you. I might have taken a bow, but I was there for that actor. And so the biggest compliment was, back then, the directors would have to go to, for you kids out there, what was called dailies. Mm-hmm. They would process the film. Yes, they used film. And 2 days later, the director could look at those scenes. So Rob came back after going to dailies a couple days later and said, it took me because I was off camera again, as was Jack. So we went from Jack right into me. And he said it took 4 takes before I realized it was no longer Jack. And I don't know that there's a better compliment.
No, I mean, not at all.
No. Yeah.
Did you lay into the Lieutenant Weinberg line as well? Did you lay into that?
You know what? I wanted to be there for the other actor. I did not put a little extra spin on it. It was already there.
You, Lieutenant Weinberg.
I mean, who's going to do it? You, the Hebrew? It's. The fact that people ask as a question, really,
right?
I mean,
but the other 3 who have preceded you from the film in that guest chair all said that when Jack was doing it off camera, he didn't skip a beat. It was
never
the
missed,
same thing every single time.
For 5 days, he never missed a syllable. I mean,
amazing.
I talk about in my stand-up back how I'd never seen an actor turn it on and off as easily as he could. Because when Rob Reiner yelled action, he was letter perfect, never missed a syllable. But when Rob said cut, Jack looked like he'd been stoned for 3 days. I'd never seen anything like it, right? He'd stand up, and he was so gregarious and goofy, which is also not what I expected.
Really?
I thought he'd be aloof. Someone who, at that point, even in 92, he'd been cool to 5 generations somehow,
Right.
Or so it seemed. And I just pictured him, oh, there's Jack over there. Look at him, but don't talk to him. And but he was the most approachable, gregarious of any giant, iconic movie star I've ever worked with.
Kevin Pollak here on the Rich Eisen Show. And in terms of Casino, of all the people that I would want to ask you about, it has to be Rickles.
Don Rickles.
Hands down, right?
Yeah, because watching him rip into De Niro on set in the middle of a take, there's no greater joy, really.
I think I've seen that on Twitter, right? Isn't that what did he do? He just ripped on him in the middle of a take, or?
Well, the camera's rolling around the casino floor. There's 100 extras.
Right.
Rickles is standing next to De Niro in a scene. De Niro is acting, saying his dialogue. Rickles' character is just standing there, as he does for most of the film. He's not supposed to speak. And in the middle of the take, he looked at De Niro and said, "Is that the way you're going to do it? Like that? No, you got the awards. I'm sure you know what you're doing. Go ahead." And every sphincter tightens on set. Nobody knows how Bob, as we're forced to call him, is going to react.
Right.
But Rickles knew that he owned De Niro because De Niro worshipped Rickles. And Rickles told me this one day. He said, early on, I own this guy because when he was a kid, there were 2 types of peer groups on the street corners in New York. When De Niro grew up, there was doo-wop groups and put-down groups. And demure De Niro was in a put-down group. Your mother this, your mother that, right?
Right.
So to them, Rickles was God. And Rickles found out about it and went after him every day.
Did he really?
It was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Yeah.
Wow. Kevin Pollak here on the Rich Eisen Show. And then another one, too. grumpy old men being around Lemon and Mathau for as much as you did too.
Speaking of sports, Mathau had a very famous gambling issue. In fact, at his memorial on the back of the program were his picks for the following Sunday.
Are you serious?
When he passed.
Get out.
Yeah.
Walter Mathau.
Yeah. When I met him on the set for the very first time, you never know how you're going to meet someone. In this case, it was on the set.
Yeah.
A couple hours before we were going to shoot our first scene together. The director just said, this is Kevin Pollak. He's going to play your son. And then the director walked away to go check on lights or something. And I'm stuck here, and I foolishly decided to make small talk with Walter Mathau. And I said, so, Walter, script's pretty good, huh? And he said, the script sucks, kid. I owe my bookie $2 million. Yeah. He wasn't kidding about the debt.
That's what he said about grumpy old men.
Yep.
I love the movie.
I mean, he was right about the debt. Yeah. He really was. It's a great movie. He and Lemon were my heroes. I grew up, character actors were my favorites. I dreamt of being one. And here's two character actors who got to be leading men and, you know, just extraordinary, iconic actors. So to study at their feet was like Mount Rushmore.
Right. And then before we get to your current project, The Usual Suspects, how many times did you have to read that script before you kind of got it?
How many times did my agent have to ask me to read it? These were two 25-year-olds, the writer and the director, who hadn't done anything. And, this was 1994, and I was at a point only 2 years after A Few Good Men where I did cross the goal line from having to audition to getting offers. And when you're getting offers, which is rarefied air, you get on the phone with your agent, and he tells you what the projects are that are coming our way.
Yeah. And
he would tell me about this script. And so the questions would be, who wrote it, who's directing it, who are my co-stars? Because you're guilty through association, right? You want to be lifted by these entities. And he kept coming back to The Usual Suspects. Well, who are these guys? He said, trust me, just read. So I got to page 5, and I called him and said, I'm in, no matter what, I'm in. And then Brian Singer, the director, said, I want Kevin in the movie. I've promised to meet with 2 different actors to audition. I can't not have them come in. I want Kevin to do it, but I have to let them come in and audition. And I said to my agent, is this an offer? Or what are you saying? And he said, no, it is. He wants you to do the movie, but out of obligation to the agents and what have you, it's protocol. You can't not see these people. And I said, well, I'm not going to let some actor come in and steal my part.
Right.
Tell them I'll come in and read. For an offer, my agent said, yeah, no, you're not doing that.
Right.
There's rules to this game.
Right.
As someone who's newly at you're getting offers.
Yeah, don't do it.
You don't go in and read.
Exactly,
you
right.
idiot.
Right.
But I didn't want to wait, so I went in and read and got the part.
And you got it.
Yeah. And then, look, the movie's lightning in a bottle. You needn't look at further than the fact that Stephen Baldwin's great in the film.
Right.
To know that it's a fluke.
And I tweet out his look of just shooting, at the lineup, that look he gives to the camera.
Yes.
Anytime the kicker Brandon McManus makes a kick for the Denver Broncos, it's McManus.
It's
you know
McManus.
What I mean? And then obviously Kaiser Soze is just a mythical character that people always bring up.
Yeah. So when you see the movie, it's one of the great, surprise endings. But I'll tell you, when you read the script, it felt more impactful because when you're reading, you're imagining this world. And you're page turning. It's such a page turner as a read, that script. And when you get to that moment in the script, I'm telling you, it was more shocking than seeing it happen in the movie. For me, anyways, the experience.
And then let's finish up with what's going on with you right now, man. Congratulations on the marvelous Mrs. Maisel.
Won the lottery with this one, Rich.
It is
it's crazy.
I texted you,
yes,
and I'm like,
did.
hey, man, it is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It truly is a special show.
Yeah.
I guess you can call it a period piece, but it's also about a woman who decides to try stand-up comedy in the late 50s after her husband shocks her by breaking up with her, asking for divorce. You play the husband's
father-in-law,
and so you play Mrs. Maisel's father-in-law.
Yes,
and
an actual Maisel.
And it is just the family dynamic, the humor, the concept. And I'll tell you, unique. It's amazing, Kevin.
Thank you, brother.
You're welcome.
In season 3, they enjoyed Tony Shalhoub and my character being pitted against each other so much.
The two dads.
Yeah, the two dads. That in season 3, I can promise even greater fireworks. They created a storyline for us that's maddening and fantastic. But yeah, it really does feel like I won the lottery. And they had done the pilot, and the way Amazon does their shows, they put the pilot up on Amazon for the audience to weigh in and help decide what happens. And they picked it up to 2 seasons based on the pilot, which was unprecedented for them. And the creator of the show, Amy Sherman Palladino, her husband Dan, realized they didn't have in-laws in the pilot, so she called and said, would you please? And when you see that pilot, that first episode, there's a magical quality. You say you could call it a period piece. Of course it is, because it's set in 1958, 59, and now 60. But yeah, there is a heightened authenticity between the wardrobe and the music and the cinematography. There's a conglomeration of all these things that are happening at the same time and creating with these actors in this writing. Yeah, it every now and then you get to be a part of something this insanely magical. And I'm at a point in my life where I get to just be grateful. Honestly. In the early days, you try to figure out what's next, and you have to look ahead and plan your alleged path. And this is just basking in one of the greatest jobs of all time. But as a comedian first, who had no formal training as an actor, and kind of bluffed my way through a number of films leading up to this point.
Bluffed you.
I don't know the exact number, 91, but I've done a few movies,
right.
6 of them good. And I was not trained to do 8-page oneers,
right,
where there's no cutting and there's no coverage, and they love doing this on their show, where the camera just moves through, like that one great scene in Goodfellas, through the kitchen and out to the seat.
Right.
So we do that all the time, and I didn't come from the theater. I didn't train to do, the 8 pages where there's 14 moving parts, and you cannot be the one moving part that messes up the take.
Right.
So that has been the most challenging and the most rewarding.
Well, it is. Like I said, just amazing, and your 49ers are the 1 seed in the NFC heading into Week 15, and life's good for you, brother. I'm pleased to say that. And
I will add this glorious sit with you.
Thank you, sir.
As part of that.
Right back at you, man.
Thank you, man.
At Kevin Pollak on Twitter, at Kevin Pollak123 on Instagram. The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, worth every single second of your time. Season 3 premiered just this past Friday on Amazon Prime Video. Check it all out. And we didn't even hit your stand-up act at all. That's how it worked.
Everything's online. Go take a look.
God bless it. Okay. Oh, yeah, we didn't even hit billions either. But you were great in that too, man.
Thank you.
Kevin Pollak right here on The Rich Eisen Show. We'll set up the rest of the week when we come back.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download the Rich Eisen Show app.